because they thought this new tax placed God's land and God's people under the service of foreigners. And they were only supposed to serve God. But now they thought they were being told they had to serve foreigners, foreign gods, foreign peoples. And so they went on a revolt, led by a guy named Judas, not the Judas we read about in the Bible, but a guy named Judas of Galilee. And it was put down with severe consequences. And they were made to toe the line as this Roman province, made to pay the taxes. And so they asked, can you pay taxes to Caesar? Can you pay taxes to your government and still give allegiance to the God of Israel? You know, these opponents of Jesus probably thought he was some sort of extremist. After all, this Judas of Galilee came from the same place that Jesus of Galilee came from. They probably thought he was that kind of a nutball. You know, they thought maybe they could pigeonhole him. Maybe they thought they could get him into that kind of a corner. And they had a question that if he answered yes, they had him, and if he answered no, they had him. And it was really a brilliant question. If he openly rejects the head tax, well, then they're going to report him to Pilate. Pilate's going to have him killed, put down. He's not going to put up with any more revolts. He's just going to wipe them all out, and that'll be the end of it. If he answers no, well, if he answers that he endorses the tax, I got this wrong, didn't I? If he rejects the head tax, yeah, that's right. If he endorses the tax, all of the people are going to say, oh, he's siding with the Romans. He's an enemy of ours. We hate him. You know, so they had him both ways in this question. You have to know that almost every resident, every person in Israel had somebody they knew personally had suffered under the Romans. Whether it was a father, a brother, a son, everybody knew someone. And it was a huge grief to them to have this happen to them. All kinds of things happened. They couldn't pay their taxes, they were sold into slavery. If they couldn't pay their taxes, they were forced off their lands. They had to sell their land to whoever could buy it at the foreclosure sale. They were executed if they went into revolt. Everybody in Israel knew at least one person who had suffered in some horrendous way because of taxation by the Romans. Now, a yes answer will also throw Jesus' messiahship into doubt, because they believed that the Messiah would come and overthrow the Romans. And if Jesus came along and said, yes, you have to pay the tax, well, then he wasn't the Messiah, obviously, because he's siding with the Romans. They knew the Messiah would overthrow the Romans. And so Jesus comes along and they think they've got him in a bind. Now, Jesus does something amazing. This is absolutely amazing. He asks for a coin. He doesn't have one. That in itself is significant. And he throws them off guard by asking for this coin. He goes for the visual aid. The head tax was paid with this denarius. It was a little silver coin. I show you a picture, but my internet is down, and so I'm lost. I don't have any pictures today. I've got to fix that. The head tax was paid by this silver denarius. Now, coins in the ancient world were propaganda. They were little billboards that said, I'm better than you are, and you're under my thumb, and I'm in charge, and you better worship my gods. In fact, a lot of them had pictures of gods on them, and you had to worship them. And if you were going to use those coins, you had to worship that god, so to speak. They were propaganda. This particular coin had this phrase on it, T Caeser Div Aug F Augustus. There's a lot of abbreviations in there. The TI is abbreviation for Tiberius. And we have Caesar. Div is divine, divinus. Aug is August. F is son of Augustus. And translated, putting it all fleshed out, means Tiberius Caesar, the august son of the divine Augustus. He was declaring himself a god and the son of a god. And that was just incompatible with anything the Jews said. On the back of it was a female figure seated on a throne. The Jews didn't really like images. And here was this female figure seated on a throne with these words, Pontiff, actually it said would be an abbreviation for Pontificus Maximus, meaning high priest, meaning Caesar is the way to relate to God, meaning Caesar is God, and you come to God. And you worship God just by having these coins in your pocket. And this is why it's so interesting that Jesus doesn't have a coin, and these Pharisees and these Herodians have this little traveling idol with them on their person. Caesar's coins belong to him. This is one of the things Jesus says. It's his name on it. They belong to him. Let him have them. Let him have it. They're not ours. Let him have them. Since they have no qualms about doing business with Caesar's money, Jesus says they had better pay Caesar's taxes. You get benefit out of this money, you better pay your taxes. Don't worry about it. This money doesn't belong to God. Give it back to Caesar if he asks for it. And since they were able to produce the coin, they were agreeing that they were doing business with Caesar. They were agreeing that they, with all that this coin had to say about Caesar. Jesus makes them look stupid and irreverent. They have this traveling idol that they have brought into the temple. They have an idol where no other god was supposed to be worshipped, and they had it with them. So why are they questioning Jesus? Jesus tells them, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to God. But this is not a blank check. Jesus doesn't say you can give to Caesar everything that he wants. Just give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. We may owe Caesar what bears his image and name, money. Our God says United States of America, but we owe God what bears God's image and name. That's us. We are created in God's image. Yes, our money may belong to the government, but we belong to God. And we need to understand that. Exactly what we owe God becomes clear here in a couple weeks when Jesus is asked, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus says, we owe God love. The love of all of our heart and soul and mind and body. We owe God our allegiance. We owe God our love. We may owe the government our money, but we owe God so much more. Now, in talking about God and government, we have a problem that has existed for a long time. And Christians have gotten off on a couple of different extremes in this whole argument about what to do about God and government. Jesus doesn't divide life into two realms, the secular and the religious. Now, there are lots of people in our country who like to do that. You know, they go, yeah, I go to church on Sunday, but it doesn't affect my decision making. We especially hear this with politicians. They go, yes, I believe one way, but I vote another way, because they're two separate things. God does not say that in any way, shape, or form. There is a political sphere and there is a religious sphere, but they are both under one Lord. Jesus says that in that discussion on the Great Commandment. He says there is one God over everything. You cannot say, yeah, what happens in church stays in church. What happens in the world stays in the world. We need to know that we are an integrated people and that everything we do needs to be under the Lord's command. Whether it's government, whether it's work, whether it's home, whether it's school, whether it's play, whether it's vacation, whatever it is. Everything is under God's control. There's only one Lord. The coin is Caesar's idol, and he can have it back, is what Jesus says. Now, there are two extremes that the church has gone to that are bad errors. The one extreme is to take control of the state, to make the church have all the power, whether it's political power, military power. And there have been times in the world's history where the church, a church, has controlled all the military, all of the government in the world. And they looked at the military and they looked at the state government as an arm doing what the church wanted. Well, we want all these people in this country to become Christians, and so they would go in and say, our army is bigger than yours, you're going to become Christians. Okay, better than being dead. Doing all of this in the name of God. This is a bad mistake. Jesus does not envision his followers becoming all militant and all powerful and all glorious. That's just not something that we are supposed to do and that Jesus envisions. Jesus envisions us as being